My parents forced me to work on Black Friday. So my sister could rest, so I moved out and let them feel the silence. I'm a 25-year-old guy, and I've always been the one who picks up the slack in my family. Growing up, I was the kid who did the dishes before anyone asked, who stayed late after family events to help clean up, who ran errands while everyone else relaxed. It wasn't because I loved doing it. I just learned early on that if I didn't, no one else would. My little sister Emily never had to lift a finger. My parents described her as sensitive, fragile, gentle. Those were just coded words for, we don't expect anything from her. I remember once in high school we had guests over for dinner. After they left, my mom handed me the trash bags without a word, while Emily went upstairs to paint her nails. My dad patted her head like she'd hosted the night herself. That was the pattern, always. Back then, I told myself I was being a good son, a responsible older brother, someone who kept the family running. But as I got older, the helping stopped feeling like a choice and more like a trap. Like the more reliable I became, the more invisible I was allowed to be. This year, things felt different. Black Friday was coming up, and I was already stretched thin, working double shifts, saving for grad school, and barely sleeping. I figured maybe, just maybe, Emily would volunteer for once, even one morning shift at the family store. I wasn't expecting a miracle, just a small sign that I wasn't the only one carrying the weight. But when my mom called a family meeting and announced the Black Friday schedule, I wasn't even surprised anymore. I was opening. Emily? She'd be resting, and that was the moment something in me started to curdle. The so-called family meeting wasn't even a meeting. It was a monologue. My mom stood at the kitchen island, holding her planner like it was the Constitution, and rattled off everyone's roles for the Black Friday weekend. Your dad will handle the deliveries. Emily will manage the online orders from home so she's not overwhelmed. And you'll open the shop Friday morning and stay until close. That was 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. I blinked. So, she doesn't have to come in at all? My mom looked at me like I'd just asked if we could cancel Christmas. She's still recovering from that panic episode she had last month. Stress triggers her anxiety. I wanted to laugh. Emily's panic episode had been triggered by a disagreement over dinner reservations. Meanwhile, I'd been juggling 2 jobs, a class project, and barely affording rent. But apparently, emotional burnout only counts when it's Emily. I looked over at my dad, hoping for backup. He didn't even meet my eyes, just nodded along like a bobblehead. And Emily? She sat there sipping chamomile tea like a dainty little porcelain doll, nodding solemnly, like she was so sorry she couldn't help more. You always handle customers better anyway, she added softly. Like it was a compliment. It wasn't. It was a chain being fastened around my neck. I should have said no. I should have pushed back harder. But years of trained obedience don't unravel in a single evening. So I nodded, got up, and put my plate in the sink, out of habit. No one thanked me. No one asked if I was okay. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, already dreading Friday. Not because of the crowds, but because I already knew no one was coming to help. The day after that meeting, I tried to give Emily the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she'd surprise me. Maybe she'd text and say, hey, I'll take the afternoon shift Friday. You need rest, too. She didn't. So I decided to ask. I caught her in the hallway the next morning, scrolling on her phone, probably checking Instagram for inspirational quotes she never lived by. Hey, I started, keeping my voice neutral. Would you be willing to switch a shift with me? Even just for a few hours on Friday? She blinked like the request physically startled her. I don't think that's a good idea. I'm still not in the best place mentally, you know? Right, I said flatly. But I've been working double shifts all week. And I'm the one opening the store at 5. She frowned like I was being unfair. You're just better at that kind of stuff, you know? People like you more. If I'm in the store, I might freeze up and ruin everything. I stared at her. I wanted to scream. But what would have been the point? You're not a child anymore, Emily, I said, my voice tighter than I meant. You can handle a few hours of retail. Her eyes welled up instantly. I don't know why you're attacking me right now, she whispered and walked away. 10 minutes later, Mom barged into my room and hissed, Don't stress your sister. She's sensitive right now. Not a single word about my exhaustion. Not a single question about my well-being. That was the moment I realized Emily would never step up. Because she didn't have to. My parents had made sure of that, and I was the one paying the price. Again. The morning of Black Friday, my alarm went off at 4:15 a.m. I'd barely slept. My body was running on caffeine and sheer obligation. The cold slapped me in the face as I stepped outside. Frost clung to the windshield. My breath came out in clouds, and I could already feel the ache in my lower back that would come from standing all day. I unlocked the family store and flipped the lights on. Just me, the buzzing fluorescents, and a silence that felt heavier than the dark. By 5:15, the line outside was 40 people deep. By 7, we'd run out of 3 top-selling items. The receipt printer jammed, the register glitched, and a woman yelled at me because the online ad had a typo. My mom had said she'd swing by to help mid-morning. She didn't. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. I texted Emily. She responded 3 hours later. Hope it's not too crazy. Sending good vibes. That text nearly made me cry. Around 4 p.m., I scarfed down a crushed granola bar in the stockroom while sitting on a crate of paper towels. My legs were trembling, my back was soaked in sweat, and my head throbbed. I hadn't had real food or a break all day. By 9:45 p.m., I finally locked up. My fingers were numb. My chest was tight. But what broke me wasn't the exhaustion. It was checking Emily's Instagram story. She was at a day spa. With a friend. Captioned, Self-Care Day, # Mental Health Matters. Something inside me snapped. I wasn't just tired, I was invisible. My pain didn't register. My work didn't count. And I finally realized, if I collapsed tomorrow, they'd probably ask if I could still cover Saturday's shift. That night, I didn't go home to sleep. I went home to start planning my exit. By the time I dragged myself home that night, it was close to midnight. My clothes smelled like sweat and stale air. My hands shook from exhaustion. All I wanted was a shower, food, and maybe, just maybe, a single thank you. Instead, I walked into a living room full of laughter. Emily was curled up on the couch in pajamas, face masked with cucumber slices, watching a rom-com with Mom. Dad was half asleep in his recliner. When they noticed me, Emily smiled faintly. You look exhausted, she said, like it was an observation, not the reason she'd stayed home all day. I dropped my bag and muttered, Yeah, because I was working a 16-hour shift alone, Mom frowned. You don't need to be so dramatic. It's not like it's your first Black Friday. Yeah, but it's supposed to be a family business, right? I snapped before I could stop myself. Where were you? Her face hardened. Excuse me? You said you'd come by. You didn't. Emily said she'd help with online orders. Nothing got done. I had to handle everything myself. Emily's lips trembled, the way they always did before she weaponized her tears. I'm sorry, she whispered. I just didn't want to make things worse. Mom's attention snapped instantly to her. Oh, honey, don't cry. You know how your brother gets when he's tired. I just stood there, stunned. Are you serious right now? I'm the one who... Enough. Dad's voice cut through. Stop yelling. We all have our roles. You need to learn to calm down. That was the moment I understood it wasn't exhaustion making me miserable. It was them. Every time I tried to speak up, they twisted it until I was the villain. I wasn't just their helper anymore. I was their scapegoat, and something told me. They were about to push me even further. I don't know what snapped first, my patience or my voice. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my mom banging on my door. We need to restock the shelves today, she said through the wood. You're coming with your dad. I sat up slowly. My muscles ached. My eyes burned. No, I said flatly, silence. Then the doorknob rattled. What did you say? I opened the door, looked her straight in the eye, and repeated it. No, I worked a 16-hour day yesterday. You and Emily didn't even show up. I'm done being the only one who cares. She blinked like she couldn't process it. Don't take that tone with me. Your sister isn't built for pressure like you are. Then maybe she should learn, I shot back. Because I'm not her replacement anymore. Her expression hardened. Don't talk about your sister like that. You know she's sensitive. That word again, sensitive. The shield she always used to protect Emily from responsibility. I felt my throat tighten. You've spent my whole life protecting her from consequences while dumping them on me. I'm tired, Mom. I'm done. Emily appeared at the top of the stairs, clutching her mug like she was the victim of a hurricane she didn't cause. Why are you yelling at Mom? She asked, her voice trembling just enough to trigger Mom's reflexive defense. My mother turned back to me. "See what you're doing? You're upsetting her again," I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You don't even hear yourselves, and for the first time in years, I didn't apologize. I just walked away. That night, no one came to my room. No one texted. No one knocked to ask if I was okay. The house was quiet. But it wasn't peace. It was punishment, and in that silence, I started to realize maybe it was time to make it permanent. The next morning, I woke up to that same silence, thick, heavy, almost deliberate. No breakfast waiting. No casual small talk. Just the hum of the fridge and the sound of my own heartbeat in my ears. Normally, that would have made me feel guilty, like I'd broken some invisible rule in our family dynamic. But this time, all I felt was clarity. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up the lease for my apartment near campus. My name was still there. I'd been splitting time between that place and home ever since my second job went remote. For some reason, I'd kept coming back here on weekends, telling myself I was helping out, staying connected, being a good son. But the truth hit me like cold water. I didn't have to stay. I could leave. Right now. So I did something I'd never dared to do before. I packed, quietly, methodically, a few clothes, my laptop, the photo of me and Dad from before things got bad. I didn't even bother taking much else. None of it felt like mine anyway. As I zipped the bag, Emily's voice floated down the hallway, muffled by a door. She was laughing at something on the phone. No guilt, no awareness. Just comfort in the chaos I was about to leave behind. I stood there for a second, staring at the walls I'd spent my life trying to belong within, and realized I never truly had. Then I grabbed my keys and walked out without saying goodbye. Air outside felt different, lighter, like, for the first time, it wasn't pressing against me, it was mine. But deep down, I still hoped they'd notice I was gone. Spoiler, they didn't. I expected my phone to explode with missed calls the next day. At least one frantic text from Mom asking where I was, maybe even a guilt-ridden voicemail from Emily. Nothing. Not one single message. I kept my phone nearby all day, glancing at it between shifts at work. Silence. I told myself maybe they hadn't realized yet. Maybe they assumed I was at a friend's place, cooling off. But by day 3, the truth was undeniable. They hadn't noticed. Or worse, they had, and they didn't care. That thought sat in my chest like a stone. On the 4th day, I broke and texted my mom. "Hey, just checking in." Her reply came 3 hours later. "Glad you're cooling off. Emily's been really stressed about your outburst. Maybe next time think before yelling. That was it." "No, where are you?" "No, are you okay?" Just another reminder that my feelings were an inconvenience. Then Emily posted a picture on Instagram. Family dinner. My seat at the table empty. Caption. Family night, always grounding. Grounding. I stared at that word until my vision blurred. They'd replaced me in every way that mattered, emotionally, physically, symbolically, and dressed it up as love. That night, I turned my phone off for the first time in years. I lay on my mattress in my apartment, staring at the ceiling, realizing the silence that used to feel like punishment now felt like peace. If they couldn't feel my absence, then maybe they didn't deserve my presence, and from that night forward, I decided I wasn't going back. The first week away from home felt strange, like I'd escaped a prison, but the walls were still in my head. I kept waiting for the guilt to hit me, the panic, the sense of betrayal, but instead, I felt this quiet hum of freedom under my skin. My roommates noticed it first. "Dude, you look lighter," one of them said as we cooked dinner together. It was the first time in months someone had included me in something, instead of assigning me to it. Simple things felt foreign. Choosing what to eat, deciding when to sleep, watching a movie without someone shouting my name for help. The silence in my apartment didn't accuse me. It embraced me. I started journaling. At first it was angry, pages of resentment, exhaustion, and things I'd never dared to say out loud. But slowly it turned softer, more about what I wanted than what I'd lost. One night I took a walk through the city. The streets glowed with Christmas lights, people rushing with bags and laughter, the air sharp and cold. I realized how much life I'd missed trying to keep everyone else comfortable. For once, no one was depending on me. And instead of feeling lonely, it felt peaceful. I texted my mom one last time that week. Just a short, polite message. Hope everyone's well. She didn't reply, but instead of breaking me, it made me stronger because for the first time, I wasn't living for her response, I was living for mine. And deep down, I knew when they finally reached out, it wouldn't be because they missed me. It'd be because they needed something, and I was ready for that moment. It took 11 days of no contact, 11 days of me not folding back into their orbit. And then finally, a text from my mom. We're short-staffed for the holiday weekend. Can you come in to help on Saturday? No, how are you? No acknowledgement of my absence. Just a request, a task. Like I was an appliance that had finally been plugged back in. I stared at the screen for a long time. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. I almost said yes out of reflex. Almost convinced myself that helping once wouldn't undo all my progress. But then I remembered Black Friday. Me eating crackers in the stockroom while Emily got a facial, so I didn't respond. 4 hours later, Emily texted. Seriously? You're gonna leave us hanging just because you're in your feelings? That one stung. Not because it was unexpected, but because it was so predictable. Every time I tried to stand up for myself, I was in my feelings. Every boundary I tried to draw was drama. I put my phone down and went for a walk. Cold air burned my lungs. I watched a couple ice skating, a dad lifting his kid onto his shoulders, a woman humming to herself at a bus stop. No one needed me in that moment, and for once, that didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like relief. When I got home, I blocked both of them for the night, just to see how it felt, and to my surprise, I didn't feel guilty. I felt still they hadn't missed me. They'd missed my labor, and that realization, it changed everything. It was my aunt who finally broke the silence. She called me one afternoon while I was doing laundry, her voice soft but loaded. I just wanted to check in. Your mom's really upset, she said gently, like she was talking to a frightened animal. She's been crying. Said she doesn't understand why you're punishing the family like this. I let out a dry laugh. She never asked why I left, did she? Silence. She just said you got emotional and walked out, my aunt replied, hesitant. Emily's been having a hard time too. Said she's never seen you so cold. Cold. That word echoed in my chest. I'd given them everything. My time, my energy, my silence, and now that I'd withdrawn, I was cold. I told my aunt the truth. Not the version my family curated, the real one. About Black Friday. About the gaslighting. About the years of being the backup plan for a sister who'd never grown up. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I'm so sorry, honey. I didn't know. Of course she didn't, because my parents had already started spinning the narrative. I wasn't the exhausted son who finally snapped. I was the ungrateful child who abandoned them without warning. That night, I unblocked my mom long enough to scroll through our old texts. There was a pattern I hadn't seen before. Almost every conversation started with a request. Help with the store. Pick Emily up. Run an errand. Cover a shift. Very few ever asked how I was doing, and suddenly I realized this wasn't new. This had always been the dynamic. Just hadn't let myself name it, but now I had, and I wasn't stepping back into a script where I played the villain just because they couldn't handle the silence. December crept in like a memory I wasn't ready for. Every store window glowed with decorations. Every commercial screamed family togetherness. My roommates were planning trips home, talking about childhood recipes and annoying uncles. And I was just trying to hold it together. A part of me still craved the old rhythm. The familiar noise. Even if it was dysfunctional, it was ours. So when Christmas Eve rolled around and I found myself alone, sitting on the couch eating takeout lo mein, the guilt finally caught up with me. Maybe I'd been too harsh. Maybe they had noticed my absence but didn't know how to say it. Maybe Emily's texts were her way of reaching out, twisted as they were. I opened a bus app, searched for tickets. There was still one left, leaving at 6 a.m. Christmas morning. Without thinking too much, I booked it. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, rehearsing what I'd say. Something neutral, polite. Maybe I'd just show up with pie and pretend everything was fine. Then, just past midnight, my phone buzzed. It was Emily. Mom says if you do come, please don't bring drama. We just want a peaceful holiday. I stared at the message until my chest went tight. No apology, no warmth, just a warning. A reminder that my pain was still considered an inconvenience. I canceled the bus ticket, not with anger. With clarity, they didn't want me back. They wanted their version of me, the one who kept quiet, who said yes, who didn't make things messy by having needs. And I was finally done auditioning for that role. I didn't sleep that night. But I didn't cry either. I just sat with the silence. And for the first time, it didn't hurt. On Christmas morning, instead of waking to chaos and cinnamon rolls, I brewed coffee in my apartment and stared at the quiet snowfall outside. The city felt paused, like the world was waiting for something to thaw. I didn't go online. I didn't check messages. I just sat there, still. Around noon, I pulled out my journal and started writing. Not a list, not a vent. A letter, dear Mom, Dad, Emily. The words poured out. I wrote about the childhood birthdays I shared with Emily that always somehow centered around her. The nights I stayed up helping with her science projects, only for her to take all the credit. I wrote about being 15 and watching my mom cry over Emily's stress while ignoring the panic attacks I quietly hid. I wrote about Black Friday, the silence, the spa post, the text that broke me, and I wrote about how I used to think love meant earning your place, carrying weight until someone said thank you. I thought if I was helpful enough, quiet enough, useful enough, they'd eventually see me. But I see now, I was only visible when I was serving a purpose. The final lines were simple. I forgive you. But I won't come back to a place where love feels like labor. I'm done proving my worth to people who never questioned my sisters. I folded the letter, placed it in an envelope, and slid it into the back of my journal. I never mailed it. I don't think I ever will. But writing it was the first thing I'd done just for myself in a long time. And in that act alone, something began to heal. It was the first week of January when the call came. I was walking home from the library, wrapped in a secondhand coat, my breath fogging up in the cold. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Mom. For a second, I froze. Part of me thought about letting it ring out, sending her straight to voicemail like I'd done before, but something in me said, answer. So I did. Her voice was soft. Too soft. Like someone testing the ice on a frozen lake. We've been thinking about you, she said. It's been a strange holiday without you here. I waited for more. A reason, an apology, even a hint of reflection. What I got was, Emily's been crying a lot. She says she misses her big brother. She's been feeling really attacked. Attacked. Not abandoned. Not favored. Attacked. I took a slow breath. I miss the idea of a family that sees me, not the one that uses me and calls it love. She didn't respond right away. I could hear her breathing on the other end. Then, you're being unfair, there it was. The default setting. My pain was a disruption, a threat to the narrative, but this time I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I'm not angry anymore, I said calmly. I just don't want to be part of a system that only works when I'm losing. She sighed. So what, you're cutting us off now? No, I said. I'm giving myself space. If that feels like punishment to you, maybe ask why silence feels so loud. I ended the call gently, without slamming the door. Because I didn't need revenge. I needed release. Most people think silence is something you use to hurt others, a passive punishment, a cold shoulder. But for me, silence became something entirely different. It became medicine. I didn't post any long rants on social media. I didn't write exposés or try to change their minds. I just stopped showing up where I was expected to suffer. Each day that I didn't reach out, I thought I'd feel emptier. But the opposite happened. I started filling up with things I hadn't felt in years: clarity, rest, choice. I began waking up and asking myself what I wanted, not what would keep the peace, not what would avoid tears or fights. I wanted quiet mornings with black coffee. I wanted walks at dusk without having to explain where I was. I wanted to say no and have it mean something. People talk about healing like it's this beautiful, glowing process. But sometimes it's just a Tuesday night where no one is yelling your name from another room. I reconnected with old friends, cooked meals for myself, laughed without looking over my shoulder to see who would need something next. In the past, I measured my worth by how useful I was. But now I was learning to just be. And to trust that I didn't need to earn rest or love or space, I thought they'd reach out again, try harder. But they didn't, and that used to hurt. Now it just proved the silence was never about punishment. It was about protection, not punishing them, protecting me. People ask if I still love my family. The answer is yes. I love the version of my mom who used to braid my hair before school and hum while she did it. I love the version of my dad who taught me how to ride a bike and clapped when I finally stopped wobbling. And I even love the version of Emily who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms because I made her feel safe. But I also love myself now. And for the first time, that love has limits. Love doesn't mean sacrificing yourself to maintain someone else's comfort. Love doesn't mean showing up while they rest, staying silent while they scream, giving while they take. That's not love. That's performance. That's survival. And I survived long enough. These days, I still get the occasional text, mostly around holidays. Polite, vague messages like, "Hope you're doing okay," but no real ownership. No real change. And I no longer crave that. I used to think closure came in the form of apology. But sometimes closure is a decision you make alone, in the quiet when no one's looking, when you finally say, "This ends with me." So no, I'm not going back. Not for Christmas. Not for birthdays. Not until the table makes space for me as a person, not just a provider. But I'm not bitter. I've stopped looking backward. I've built something better. A small, peaceful life that feels mine. I laugh louder. Breathe deeper. And I've started meeting people who don't expect me to shrink to make them comfortable. If you've been raised to believe your worth depends on your usefulness, hear me when I say you don't have to burn out to be loved. Sometimes the loudest form of healing is walking away without slamming the door and never walking back through it again.